there's absolutely nothing demure about what Caitlyn Clark is doing since the All-Star break, or really not the All-Star break, but the Olympic break.
On a tear.
Um, yeah. You know what? It's so funny. It's as if, Gary, for months now, all of these WNBA experts have been telling A, the people who felt like the league was being too hard on her, and B, the people who felt like she was overrated because her team started out 2-9 and she was leading the league in turnovers and she wasn't getting, her typical logo threes and stuff. It's as if there was all these experts that told both of you that she was going to be just fine. That given some time, given some practice, given some chemistry building, given a freaking break, because the girl's been going since like last November,
Hmm.
she would be just fine. And alas, wow, look what's happened. She comes back from the All-Star break, and the good news for the Fever is while they had the hardest schedule to start the season, they have the easiest post-Olympic break, but not necessarily this week. I mean, you're facing two teams in the Mercury and the Storm. Both are playoff teams. Both, to some degree, have enough talent on their team to say that they're contenders, although they're both middling a bit right now.
Hmm.
And not only did they win, I mean, they punched both of them in the mouth, starting earlier this week, or last week rather, with her beating the Mercury, avoiding the season sweep, which was great, and then taking down the Storm, a team who have really been sort of hit or miss. They started out the season sort of trying to figure out their own chemistry issues. They really went on a bit of a tear, a little bit of a downslide to end the break, and then they came back, and we were hoping to sort of see between them and the Lynx and Connecticut. Like, will the real contenders please stand up? And I mean, they absolutely took it to him. She sets an assist record, which of course she takes great pride in, because that's the thing about Caitlyn. All the logo threes and stuff is what gets all of the attention on the highlights, but the girl can dish. That her vision, her court vision is probably the most impressive thing about Caitlyn Clark. When we talk about her looking like Pistol Pete or being, ponytail Pete Maravich was the dime machine. And she's
Hmm.
got so many of those aspects and takes great pride in it. And now we're talking about a Fever team, Gare Bear, who inconceivably to start the season are not only a playoff team, but a playoff team that could potentially make a little bit of noise because it's a 12-team league and 8 teams make the postseason.
Hmm.
And so it stood to reason that, like, if they could string some wins together, they could sneak into the postseason. But now this is a team that we might be looking at and saying they could potentially win a first round series.
I have many points to get to. First and foremost, we can start calling Caitlin Clark Dawn, the way she's built for these dishes. You know what I'm
Okay.
saying?
Okay.
She
Okay.
hit three
That's a bar.
triples. Okay, that's a bar. Hey, use that one on the 6P. All right.
Yeah.
No attribution necessary. Okay. The thing about what Caitlin Clark's doing, and I know on the last podcast we said, oh, what about the rookie of the year conversation?
Mhm.
I'm done talking about the rookie of the year. She should also be in the MVP conversation. I know it's going to be Asia Wilson, Brianna Stewart. Obviously, it's a loaded class. It's a loaded crop of players. But I don't think you can make an argument against why she shouldn't be in that conversation. I'm not trying to go Dak 2.0 here like I did on First Take, but what she is doing with the team she is doing it on deserves more recognition. She set the all-time WNBA rookie assist record last game against the Seattle Storm team, who's top 4 in the WNBA standings. The Fever still have 12 games to play. So conceivably, she can put this in such a rear view that nobody will ever touch this record. So they have 12 games left, 7 of which are against teams with sub 500 records. So they can really distance themselves, the Fever, into climbing up, not just into the 6th spot or the 5th spot. I mean, it's not inconceivable to say they can be playing for a top 4 spot in the playoffs. The Liberty have already clinched. The Connecticut Sun and the Aces are absolute wagons, but they're playing both the Sun and the Aces 2 more times by the end of the season. Obviously, they would have to win those games in order to be put in the top half of the WNBA playoffs. And maybe I'm just drinking the juice, and I'm high on the supply that the Indiana Fever are providing. But there's nothing that they've done these 2 games outside of break against teams who are good that tells me otherwise. Like Caitlin Clark, to your point, oh, she's the logo 3. She's the one who's double digit scoring. The Fever shot 50% from distance last game. Caitlin Clark was 3 of 10. So it's the distribution
Yeah,
Like Lexi
Lexi
Hull,
Hull.
a career
Lexi Hull,
high,
yeah, was
right? It's the
nasty.
distribution that she has. Kelsey Mitchell playing really well. So again, I think right now everybody needs to, if not already, get on this Indiana Fever playoff train.
Well, I think that's the thing with the Fever is that what we're finally starting to see is that so much of this was about what Caitlyn Clark was or was not going to be able to do and how she's going to be able to drag this team to the postseason. And people kept forgetting that they had the reigning Rookie of the Year in Aaliyah Boston, who
Mhm.
has figured out her timing with Caitlyn Clark. And then you mentioned Kelsey Mitchell. She said that her and Caitlyn speak the same language. They both love to run the floor. And you're seeing that as well as she's been phenomenal. I mean, both of them offensively incredible. Lexi Hull was on an absolute tear against the Storm. I'm gonna pump the brakes a little bit though on the MVP talk, and
Okay, I was
it's not.
gonna say, wait,
I'm
hold
gonna I'm
on.
gonna
You
yeah
haven't given me any follow-up on the MVP nugget that I dropped. Okay, so I'm glad that you have a reaction to this.
yeah I'm gonna pump the brakes there a little bit. If you just want to like throw them in the same way that we sort of go, why can't SGA be an MVP, right? Like if you want to sort of throw it in that conversation,
Hey,
that's
real
fine.
quick, SGA second in
He was.
WNBA MVP voting.
He was, and that's fair. Fine. Then I'll throw like a when people were like, "Oh, like Jalen Brunson." You know what? These aren't even good comparisons because
Jalen Brunson's a good one.
all I need to do is run for you Asia Wilson's stats this year because this is what you need to remember about Asia Wilson. Okay, she's a two-time MVP. She's a two-time Defensive Player of the Year award. She's a WNBA Finals MVP. And she is still somehow playing the best basketball of her career. She is averaging over 27 points, 12 rebounds, almost 3 blocks, over 2 assists, and almost two steals a game. She is shooting over 52% from the field. She is almost shooting 40% from deep. That is the most
Understood.
complete resume that currently exists. And then if you're going to make the argument for Brianna Stewart, Stewie's been phenomenal as well. And the Liberty, honestly, are the only team out of the contenders, if you will, that don't seem to have an Olympic hangover at all. They look
Mhm.
fantastic. A Liberty team that's one of the original teams and still doesn't have a championship. It has been elusive to them. They look great. Her and Sabrina look fantastic. Certainly we're going to see what happens in the finals or in the playoffs rather, as over the last couple of years that's been sort of the one thing for Stewie. He's just getting a little bit tired, so much of the offensive output. And here's the thing with the Liberty, they don't even have Benijah Laney Hamilton back, who's still out with the knee injury, their best defender on the team.
Mhm.
It's not an indictment on anybody else. It's completely an endorsement on Asia Wilson. This is the easiest and should be the easiest decision that we've ever seen in terms of MVP. So if just for and giggles you want to just like throw Caitlyn in the conversation because it's not fun to handicap it at, you know, Asia Wilson's going to win it and no one else is going to come close. But there's no
Let,
debating it. And for
let me ask you a
me,
question.
yeah,
I'm not debating it. That's why I was like, listen, she's not going to win, but she should be in the conversation, right? She should be invited into this exclusive party, into this exclusive. Let me ask you this. The Fever play the Aces two more times
yeah.
in their 12 games. If
Hmm.
Caitlin Clark wins those individual head-to-head matchups, you don't think you don't think it shortens the odds, shorten
No,
the talk behind it because
no,
you're gonna be on the
no,
desk for all those ABC primetime games, right? Like you don't think that conversation's gonna be breached between you and the big three?
no. I mean,
Or at
I
least,
think
or
if
at
that
the very least, what about at the very least? Asia Wilson right now, front runner, will likely win MVP. Who's the next best option? Who's her next closest competition? You're
probably
telling me
Stewie.
if Caitlin Clark doesn't win those head-to-head matchups, and the next couple of games, they beat Seattle, they beat Phoenix, they have the Aces twice, they play Minnesota next, and they get the Sun. The Fever, of their 5 games left against winning teams, they're all 5 teams who are ahead of them right now in the standings.
Yeah, no. I don't I think that if we broach that topic on a WNBA countdown, it would just be to stir the pot. No. There has been one
That's
player
what we
ever
do.
in WNBA history that has been a rookie and has won MVP honors, and that is Candace Parker, and that is because she was dominant from beginning
Okay.
to end. I think the race is too far. It's too no. No, I think it's
Okay.
just too far. Like, and again, I think additionally, if you're going to throw a second name in there, it's probably going to be someone like a Brianna Stewart, or
Okay.
maybe even before her team sort of was floundering, and Alyssa Thomas, who's had a couple of top four MVP finishes. And again, none of those are as sexy as Caitlin Clark in terms of big names and whatnot. But no, I think this is Asia's to lose. I think that the conversation about Rookie of the Year which had a lot more nuance to it than people wanted to believe even a few weeks ago, when if you even made an argument for Angel Reese, you were deemed a hater. I think that that conversation has become more clear. Um, to me, I've sort of been 10 toes down and that I think it's Caitlyn Clark that should get Rookie of the Year. But that I could understand the argument for Angel Reese. And by the way, shout out to Angel Reese, another double double. I mean, the woman is on fire. She continues to extend already what's been a record breaking season for her in the double double metric. But Chicago is still they're not winning.
Yeah.
They're
They're
not
not.
being impacted by her incredible play in the way that Caitlyn is impacting the Fever. Again, a
Correct.
team that started 2-9, have settled in, and now took down two pretty big names, and to your point, have the easiest schedule remaining. So I think that has certainly put some people on alert. And I do think that the Rookie of the Year conversation gets clear. Like, I think those odds are going to continue to stretch. She was already such a big
Logan's
favorite. I think
Yeah.
that is going to be solidified over the next couple of weeks. And I think if they're able to stand toe to toe with the Aces and beat them, then that Rookie of the Year conversation becomes a little bit clearer. But no, I'm not
Okay.
broaching that topic with MVP simply because of what Asia Wilson's doing. And I think we are so apathetic to greatness that we're like, yeah, whatever. I read her resume. It's like, yeah, that's what you expect from her. But again, to do all of those things and have all of those accomplishments and still find a way to elevate is absolutely remarkable, truly. And so I'm still going with the Aces there. But can I
And
give
what
a
people need to realize real
yeah,
quick, Elle, because you said you were 10 toes down on Caitlin Clark, and what people who aren't familiar with Elle's sensibilities, disdains, and likabilities, she absolutely hates feet
I
and
do.
toes. So for her to be 10 toes in anything other than
It's real
sand
supportive.
on a beach or an ocean, that speaks absolute volumes.
Yeah, it really does. Maybe I should have
You,
said baby toes. They're
you
acceptable.
hate feet. It's
I
the
hate them.
funniest. It's the funniest thing that I've ever known about you. Is like you will like you like dry heave at the
I'm
thought or sight of feet.
I'm disgust I was on an elevator last year
What?
in Tuscaloosa, and I was at the stadium before the Alabama game. I can't remember who they were playing. Maybe Texas, before Alabama, Texas. And I got on, they were giving me like a tour of the stadium, and I got on one of those freight elevators, and like 10 Alabama bros, like the most typical, stereotypical, like Bama frat boys, all get on the elevator with me.
Pose out.
They're all wearing thong sandals. And I felt I've I almost had a panic attack. Not because I was in an enclosed space, but because there was just feet out everywhere. They were all around me. And when you're in an elevator, so that you can avoid like eye contact, right? Like you tend to look down or whatever. I couldn't look down. I couldn't look up. I didn't know where to look. There was toes everywhere. It was the stuff of nightmares.
That was hell. That was your hell. You're
Touching
so
me with your feet is like fear factor, like the eating of the
eating
Madagascar
tarantulas and stuff.
cockroaches and stuff. That's cool, whatever. I could find a way to choke that down. But my form of torture would be holding me down and then just someone putting their feet on me. It would be tough to
Do you
survive.
make Omar sleep in socks?
No, but if he touches me with his feet, I jump.
Are you
I
serious?
will wake up. If I
That
feel his toe on me, I will jump.
Elle, that
I
is your
hate it.
husband.
I know.
That is the man you have created children with.
Yeah. And
And you
I
and he can't
created
put his
children with him, not his feet.
little piggy.
No,
He can't tickle you with his It's so good.
that's so
It's so
gross.
bad it's good.
It's so great. Speaking of so bad, it's good. Can I give a quick shout out before we move on from the W?
Yes. Please.
Can I give a shout out to the Atlanta Dream? Okay. Because it's been a dream
Sure.
start for an Atlanta team that was facing a bit of a nightmare. I mean, they lost 8 in a row and 11 of 12 before the All Star break. And they resume, and Jordan Canada comes back because they weren't healthy either, and that didn't help.
Okay.
She only played 4 games before the break, but they've had a couple of big wins this week over
Yeah.
Seattle, over Connecticut. And so shout out to Atlanta, man, because they're trying to find they're trying to find their way and can sneak into the playoffs. A team that at one point looked like would be battling with the Mystics for the number one
Yes.
overall pick, and now if they can go on a little bit of a run, they can make some noise and at the very least sneak into the postseason. And then the Tina Charles experiment wouldn't have been considered a wash. So shout out to the Dream. I got to give them a little love.
So they're 9-17. They are the 9 spot right now in the WNBA standings. So they would actually be leapfrogging the Chicago Sky
Sure.
if that were to be the case.
Yes. And a quick
Something to watch
reminder.
out for. Okay.
Exactly. And a quick reminder, too, because when I did First Take last week, Mad Dog asked me, for those of you that don't know, we have a lot of new W fans and we love that. with the playoffs, 8 teams make it, right? So
Mhm.
8 out of the 12 teams make the postseason. The top 4 seeds host the best of 3. It's not like
Mhm.
Eastern Conference versus Western Conference. That's not how that works.
Yeah.
The top 4 seeds will host the best of 3 in the quarterfinals, and then those highest seeds that are remaining then host a best of 5 series in the semis, and then obviously in the finals. So that's how it works. So it's going to be a really good next, few weeks, and we'll be holding you down along the way. But love to see the W kind of forming together and the picture becoming a little bit clearer with the
Let's get it.
playoffs. Let's go.